Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine. Your host, Avi Meyers, and the greatest cameraman of all, Sonny Hersh.
Avi Meyers here, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hersh and myself. Join us every single Thursday at 7:30 p.m., Friday at 2:30 p.m. on Channel 19, CAN TV in Chicago, Channel 6, EM's Evanston Community Media Center in Evanston, Thursdays at 8 o'clock, Mondays at 6 o'clock on Channels 19 and 35 in 25, 30, I never get the number right, north and northwest suburbs. It is a pleasure and privilege to have who I like to call the favorite son of our neighborhood. But I think since we probably got somebody from Illinois running for president, I don't think he's going to try to run for president this year. Actually, I didn't think he was going to run for president last year or the year before or the year before that. But we are privileged to have, if I'm not mistaken, the state's attorney of Cook County, who's in his third term as state's attorney, which is one of the longest terms of state's attorneys he had for quite a long time.
Yeah, somebody looked back to the 50s and 40s. It's the longest since then. There might be somebody prior to that time who did 11 years or so. Yeah. But
well, first of all, I should introduce you. We're talking about State's Attorney of Cook County, Dick Devine. How are you?
I'm great, Avi. Good
Pleasure
to
have you. And he is a neighborhood person.
I am.
I mean, West Rogers Park all the way. And my first State's Attorney memory that I remember is Eddie Hanrahan.
That's right, back in the late 60s, early 70s with the Black Panther raid and all that.
Oh, that I remember very strongly. That's when I got politically aware.
Yeah, that was a big time. It was a difficult time in Chicago, that's for sure.
Very difficult time, and he sure made more than his share of headlines.
Oh, yes, Ed had the knack for doing that. He's still around.
Oh, interesting.
Ed's still around, yeah.
Because he wasn't that old a person at the time.
No, he wasn't, and he was considered kind of the rising star in the Democratic Party, and then the Panther thing came along, and that certainly changed everything for him.
Yeah. Well, it changed a lot of things, that's for sure. The whole world changed at that point in time.
Yeah, the days of rage and everything that was going on. It was really a different time for Chicago, the country. The 60s. The 60s were much different than we are today, that's for sure.
No, it's a very different world. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
One of the things I should tell people, speaking of a different world, I mean, there's times I've seen you walk here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Today, an hour before you showed up, a security person came. I forget his name. He's a really nice guy.
Oh, Brian, yeah. There were reports about you, so I figured we better check you out.
No, absolutely. And by the way, I really want to thank Brian and the state's attorney. And by the way, Brian, I have a number of common friends, Sergeant Wellbill and Police Chaplain Moshe Wolf.
Oh,
It was a nice conversation. And I really want to thank Brian in particular because I've been looking for this Hamas guy who's been in the basement the last 2 years. And he found him. We eradicated the situation. I laid some whatever. But it was, thank you very much.
No problem.
And
no charge.
It's different. No, thank you. But, these days you're probably not supposed to walk out on your own. You're probably advised it's a whole different world.
Well, it doesn't bother me. Very often I'm on my own. But, being the state's attorney, there are some strange people out there. And every once in a while you get a call or something. But it really isn't a big deal.
Yeah, now, before we get into some major topics, by the way, I actually got a chance to see the state's attorney in action in a way I didn't expect. I actually got called for jury duty.
Ah.
And by the way, for the benefit of people who have watched the show, okay, I know the state's attorney. I'm friendly with Tom Dart, the sheriff. Okay, I know the clerk of the circuit court, even though I'm getting nothing to do with their mayoral run. But the last thing I was going to do, and by the way, also the guy who runs the jury room at 26th and Cal, Alan Klein, is the brother of Rabbi Klein from Evanston that I do books with. And you know what? I didn't call anybody. I quietly went down there. It's my citizenly duty to go to jury duty. Okay, I even got put on a jury.
You did? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Which really shocked me like there was no tomorrow, that I had really mixed feelings about. And by the way, the last time I was in 26th and Cal, I actually served as a reporter for the Daily Defender. I was the token white guy for a very short period of time. And now that the Chicago Public Library, that I urge everybody to join, has all the newspapers online, I'm going to call that story up. I'm going to show it on the web. Because my very first story ever was a front-page headline story about a murder at 26th Street.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
well, Alan's retiring.
That, as a matter of fact, I do know that.
Alan's retiring.
Does he work for you?
No, he works for the circuit court.
But I want to tell you, the way he put people at ease.
Oh, he did a great job.
He really was.
Yeah.
And he talked about those of you who will be picked will be the lucky ones. But the way he said it, gave less fear and trepidation to the idea of, oh my goodness, I'm going to get picked.
He created a very nice atmosphere for people out there, yeah.
He really did, and he was very good at it. And I've got to say, I got picked, and there was a trial, and it was, I can't believe it, actually, it was, there were several times during the trial I had to kind of like do this to stop from laughing. I'll explain to you. The individual on trial shoplifted $19 worth of cough remedies from a Walgreens.
Okay.
And insisted on a jury trial. Since he was wearing the same clothes at trial that he had on the... Now, by the way, besides for the 3 eyewitnesses, there were 7 cameras that documented the crime.
Well, I'd say the evidence was at least decent in this case, yeah.
And he was also had the same clothes on.
Oh, geez.
So I kind of figure he probably spent that time in Cook County Jail for 3 months waiting for a trial.
Wow.
So, basically he had a roll of toilet paper in one hand. He says, no, I didn't steal anything. I just had a roll of toilet paper. I was going back to the employee washroom. I needed to go to the washroom. He was hiding out in the back room. And, as if there wasn't going to be toilet paper there, as if he was supposed to go to the employee washroom. And, anyway, it didn't take us, well, we legally, just because we were all good citizens. It was a very intelligent jury, by the way. I was surprised. I mean, there were teachers, there were principals, there was somebody who was an investigator. I was very pleasantly surprised how, it seemed like a decent cross-section of people.
Good.
Which really surprised me, because there used to be a saying, it's like, juries consist of people not smart enough to get out of jury.
Get off the jury, yeah. No, I think the whole process has tightened up over the years, Avi, and especially with the one day, one jury approach, people are, I won't say that the overwhelming majority are looking forward to it, but I think a lot of people today see it as their duty, and many people would really like to have the experience, as long as it's not a 6-month trial or something like that.
It was actually, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. Oh,
I
sure.
kind of dreaded it when I was doing it, but I'm not displeased. The judge told us the person had 30 previous convictions.
Oh, my.
Well, how long can you send somebody away for $19?
Well, I was going to say, I'm surprised that was out of 26th Street, but now I know why.
Well, you would understand that, but he insisted on the trial.
Yeah.
And the judge told us that there were 2 trials previous. And the jury actually let him off once.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my. Well, I'm glad that it sounds like your jury did the right thing.
Well, my jury, it was a very nice group of people. And by the way, it was kind of nice, too, because a couple of members of the jury recognized me from the show.
Oh, did they really?
So that was kind
Old
of
Home
nice.
Week, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's always, I do get kind of flippant about that, but that was nice. So tell us, let's talk about the important things in life. The important thing of life, of course, is that this is a brand new year for the budget for Cook County. We've got a brand new president of the Cook County Board.
Right.
And first of all, one of the things I really have liked, besides for the fact that you're a decent person, and I've actually met you before you were state's attorney, not that it was a long conversation. It's more like, hi, how are you? And he's a really good guy. But you don't usually speak up. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you usually stay under the radar. You'll ride with the waves as opposed to step up and face them and let them smack you in the face. And you're very not political, having a political job for the 3rd term. But you've been very strong about, or at least vocal, about the cuts in the Cook County budget.
Yeah. Well, I feel strongly about it. As you noted, we're in the midst of this budget process right now. And we started off, and there's a very significant deficit, about $500 million, according to what we're told. And that strikes me as...
now, how big is the county budget in
Well,
general?
it's $3 billion. So to have
a sixth of the budget.
Exactly. So to have a $500 million deficit and a $3 billion budget is something that you say, well, how did this happen? Our office, for the 10 years I've been as a state's attorney, we've never run a deficit. The sheriff hasn't. The courts haven't. So where did this come from, and how did it get to be so large? And then why do you turn around and say there should be across-the-board cuts? I have been saying for 4 or 5 years, across-the-board cuts are a simple but very ineffective way to deal with deficits. you have to set priorities. You have to look at where your fat is. You have to look at where the muscle and bone is and what you have to do. And when you do across-the-board cuts, you cut off some fat, but you leave some fat. You cut off some good programs and take away some necessary services. So I have had a concern about the approach. I understand that it's a real challenge to try and deal with this deficit, and we're going to do what we can to contribute. But I'm trying to be protective of essential services that our office has to provide for the public.
Well, I think some of them are, I mean, you're talking crucial.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather, and maybe I'm alone, okay, but you know what? I'd rather pay more taxes. I don't want less state's attorneys. I don't want less judges. You know, I don't want less, you know, I had now Sheriff Dart on.
Yeah.
You know, they were way under the amount of guards that they were supposed to have, and you have got to have X amount of guards for your prison population.
Right.
These are, I want, and this isn't the county, but I want more policemen on the streets.
Well, the thing that we get into a problem with is most of the public, you know, you had a jury service at 26th Street, but most of the public has never been to 26th Street, and their lives, they don't think, are affected by it, but they are. If we don't have a justice system that is effective and yet fair, we're really not a community. I mean, that's the underpinning of anything you do in a community. You can't have education, you can't have good jobs, you can't have religious life or social life without a basic sense of public safety. So what we do is vital, and what I've said...
Vital, for sure. I mean, the fact is, if some of these people were not in the jail or in the system and prosecuted correctly, they'd be out on the streets causing trouble for decent people.
Well, and I think that's right. And, you know, if you put it in the perspective of law enforcement, as I told a number of the commissioners, I said, you know, if somebody came up with a proposal that you're going to cut the number of TAC officers or gang officers from the Chicago Police Department, people would be, well, no, you can't do that. That's public safety. But if you take assistant state's attorneys out of the courtroom, you're doing something similar to that. And it's not as visible, but it still has a tremendous impact. Because if the Chicago Police Department and suburban police departments do a great job in finding and arresting and bringing somebody in, and we don't have enough prosecutors to do the job to put the case together and to put it on trial, then we have a major glitch in our criminal justice system.
I think that's crucial. And don't you also have to worry about you have to bring somebody to trial at a certain point in time also?
On a felony, if a defendant demands trial, we have to try the case within 120 days if they're in jail, a county jail awaiting trial, 180 days if they're out on bond. So again, you hit a major point. If we don't have enough assistance to do these kinds of things, that's an automatic rule. After that time goes by, they walk out.
Now, so somebody who could be guilty of, like, you know, stealing, robbing, putting people at gunpoint would walk at 121 days.
Absolutely. Now, we're doing everything we can as we go through this budget process to make sure we have enough assistance in the felony trial courts. But there are other programs that are clearly going to be affected, and one is our drug diversion programs. Every year, we have between 4,000 and 5,000 people that, rather than go through the court and into jail, go through these diversion programs. They're charged with possession of a small amount of a controlled substance, but it's a felony.
Yeah.
They go into the programs, and the people that go into it, we have had tremendous success. The recidivism rate for people that complete the program is about 11%, compared to about 55 or 60% for those that don't go through it.
Wow.
So this thing works.
That works big time.
It works big time. It's cheaper than the court process. It keeps people out of the recidivism situation where they're coming back again and again.
Some of these people are actually decent people with a problem as opposed to criminals.
Absolutely. And it's ironic that prosecutors are pushing this, and yet at the same time we're finding some resistance saying, oh, we can't afford to do that. And my point is, if you don't do that, these thousands of people are going to be in the court system, they're going to be in the jail system, and you're going to spend a lot more on those parts of it, plus we're going to see them again.
Yeah, penny wise and dollar foolish.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Avi. And these are the kinds of issues that we're grappling with right now in the budget.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not going to go into other things with other governments and cause trouble for you and associated with some of my views that way. But I feel so strongly that if you do things right in the first place, you know, I can't. How do you not have enough state's attorneys to prosecute? You've got so many, you know, all you got to do is take a look at thank God the crime rates are going down. What if crime rates were like that of 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, that's an important point, but at the same time, there's kind of a false illusion there. And some of the commissioners say, well, the crime rate's going down, so you don't need as many people. Well, what we have to understand is the crime rates that are reported never take into account drug crime. And we have thousands and thousands of these drug crimes that are not looked at when the FBI does their report. And I'm delighted, and it's great work by Phil Klein and the suburban departments and our office and others that have really done some things to get the crime rate going down. But overall, the caseloads in the court are very similar to what they were 20 years ago. They have not gone down because you have all these drug actions that are taking place as well. So we don't have the luxury of saying, well, your caseloads are down, so you could step back. We are fighting very hard to get cases tried because we have active defense counsel that, making motions and doing this, that, and the other thing. And the courts really need to have the assistants and the defense attorneys and the judges to get these cases moving. We have far too many cases where victims and their families wait over 2 years to have a case tried. And that's wrong. People that have suffered as they have through violent crime shouldn't have to wait that long to have the accountability determined.
And the fact of the matter is, one of the things you brought up before, which I think is very important too, the fact is if there were enough judges, state's attorneys, I mean, you didn't say judges, I'm saying judges.
Yeah.
Because, I'll go through the whole legal system. If you did things right in the first place, so many other departments wouldn't have to be in the numbers they are, all these things to take care of damage after it's happened.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that, in the drug diversions are something a part of it, we talk about our core missions, and a lot of the county commissioners are saying, well, drug diversion isn't part of your core mission, and community prosecution isn't part of your core mission. Well, in a technical sense, that's true, but those entities can help prevent a lot of the things that we've just talked about. They can keep people from coming back into the court system
right.
and being in the jail system, which is very costly and a difficult part of what we do.
Well, you're also talking about taking people, human beings. This is all about human beings in society. I would think it would be nice to have society be a better place. If you can take somebody and put them on the right path to being a decent citizen, I'm not saying be left-wing, right-wing, anything. I'm just saying, don't steal, don't rob, be a decent part of society.
Live a good life, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and we have done that with our diversion programs. Our whole juvenile justice concept these days is a new one where we take thousands of cases out of the courthouse and we go out into the neighborhoods, not the violent crime, but the lesser crimes. And you have a community mediator that meets with the offender and the offender's family and the victim, and they talk about what happened. Our office is there. And not only do they work out an appropriate punishment, like paint over the graffitied garage or do some community service if the person doesn't want you around their garage anymore to pay for the paint. But they do that, but then they work out a contract that the offender and his family have to sign on things that young person has to do to get his life back on the right track. Doesn't work with everybody, but you figure if it works for 25, 30% of the people involved, again, you're taking people out of the system, you're getting them on the right track, and you're reducing the burden on the community and society for dealing with this down the road.
Yeah, and I would think, I know I'm very naive about certain things, but the truth is, I think that's a great thing. When you're able to set somebody's life in the right direction, I think that's got to be the goal of this. It's not an easy thing to do.
Well, it isn't the easy thing to do, but this also is not the product of naive people walking around saying, oh, it's nice to have a perfect society. Mm. These are pretty hard-nosed prosecutors and police officers and people looking at it and saying, this is the smart thing to do as well as the right thing to do. We take somebody, we show them there's a punishment for what they did, but it's done within the community and in part by the community, and at the same time, we take this person and we tell them a number of things you have to do in order to get your life going in the right direction.
Yeah. I think that's a great thing. I really, this just makes too much sense to me. So that's probably why it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often enough, right?
Yeah. You look at all the people, once they've slipped through the system past a certain point, it's like the person I saw, 30 different times the man's been convicted. When's there a limit?
Well, that's right. And that's the kind of person you're probably not going to change his lifestyle, his attitude, his approach. That's why it's so important to try and deal with as much of this as you can at the juvenile level or somebody who's involved in the drug life at an early stage of that, so you have a chance, you hope, to turn that around.
Yeah, no, I think that if you can, yeah, exactly, you try to get it at the core and the fact. Now, you know, it's some of its final, you know, I've had people on the show who talk about, well, you know, we'll get the problem out of this neighborhood or out of Chicago, you know, and there's no more problem. Well, no, there's still there's a problem if you're in Waukesha, there's a problem if you're in Indianapolis. There's a larger society. It's like, let's make this a good thing for the human race, so to speak.
And especially today with the mobility, and if you look at the drug markets on the west side, it isn't limited to the people that live on the west side. I mean, a lot of those people aren't involved in drugs. You have suburban teenagers coming down from the north and the west and other parts of the city getting their drugs and going back. It's a very mobile society, and the problems that are there get transported out to the suburbs. And that young person that came in to buy the drugs, he buys some extra drugs that he can sell out there to pay for his own drug habit. So this is, you can't put the blinders on and say, oh, gee, it's just out there. It's just, these problems are everywhere.
So let me ask you. So first of all, I'm not, as anybody who's watched the show knows and read my newspaper, I didn't endorse Stroger. I was under a lot of pressure to endorse him. Okay, and I wouldn't say pressure because you know what? Nobody pressures me. I don't have any money. You can't pressure me. I'm broke. Forget it. Okay. I thank God I've got clothes on my back. I got a place to sleep. I know where my next meal's coming from. God's good to me. I don't complain. But the fact of the matter is that I had more people than ever, and people I respect. You got to be for Stroger. You got to be for Stroger. My feeling was when he wanted to go on the show, he was so. We finally got him on the show because basically there's a couple of people that had him at a public event that forced him to call in to my live show. And actually, you've co-hosted the live show together with Jim Nally and myself, which has been great.
Sure.
And I don't think I embarrassed you more than once or twice during the show.
No, that's all right.
But in any event, I just got the feeling that you know what, he wasn't a real. You can't say this. I can. I just really got the feeling that he wasn't really prepared to do this kind of job.
Well, he's walked into a very challenging and difficult situation, and I respect that. I mean, you walk in and somebody says there's a $500 million deficit. That's kind of like the roof falling in.
Right. Now, do you think he's playing a game or something? I mean, you think this is a game? It's like, okay, I'm going to say like you all got to cut across the board 17%. Let's see what you guys can do, and let's go from there.
Yeah, no, I don't think so because this is not new. The last 4 or 5 years have been difficult times for the county. Nothing at this level, but still difficult times. And every time the board has dealt with the issue of who's going to cut and where, it's always been across the board. And for years I've been arguing you can't do it across the board. It isn't the right way to go about it. So he's really inherited an approach that has been the standard one. I don't think it's the right one. And I hope as we go along that he understands that we're not simply talking about a budget as an end in itself. A budget is merely the blueprint or the organization of what government does. So you don't aim for the budget as being the day we all sit back and say, oh, we have a budget, let's all go home. You operate under that budget for a year after that. Yeah. So that's what I've been really trying to hammer home, that we have to look at what the operations are going to be after the budget is passed. And in doing that, I recognize terrible challenge here. We all have to contribute something, but it should be, the approach to it should be organized in the sense of what are the fundamental things we have to do for people in this community. Let's make sure we take care of those. And then if we have some programs that are nice but we can do without, including some of mine, then we do without them.
Okay. But in your case, I'm prejudiced, and I generally give you the benefit of the doubt with these
I appreciate that. How you start that way.
Okay. And, okay. So you know what? We have a bit of time, and I'm not going to say we're not going to get back here. But you know what? First of all, let me ask you, you like anybody in the mayor's race?
Well, as you know, Avi, I worked for the current mayor as first assistant state's attorney back in the early 1980s when he was first state's attorney. And the thing that I've always liked about Mayor Daley is that he truly comes to work every day to work. And he has things he wants to accomplish, and he has a work ethic to get that done. I think by and large, over the course of the last 16 years, whatever it is now, 17 probably now, the city has moved fairly well. I know one of the other challengers and like her and respect her, but this is a very difficult job to run a city like Chicago.
Yeah, I like her too, but I'm with you all the way here.
I mean, I think it's a great challenge, and I think he's demonstrated he's up to the challenge.
I think he's more than up to the challenge. I think he's really unique, and one of the things that always gets me you have to look at other people's perspectives sometimes. Right now, look at the Olympic bid. I'm not going to tell you that I think it's the most wonderful or great or glorious thing to get the Olympics. But other cities look at Chicago's bid and they go, you know what, Mayor Daley's doing this.
Yeah.
And he can do this. You know, everybody else respects him.
Well, it gives it a level of credibility just because of what he's done and who he is.
But the fact is, you know, sometimes when you're too close to a situation, your view gets distorted.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we're used to him. And maybe we don't know what it would be like if we had, I forget the name of the other guy, but...
the other guy. It's the other guy.
Well, the other guy's the right way to put it, yeah.
Well, you know, I worked for the first Mayor Daley back in late 1960s and early 1970s, and I had an experience where that very thing came home because, as you say, when someone is with you and he's right there in Chicago, you kind of think, oh, that's where it is. But I went out to the U.S. Conference of Mayors annual conference with the first Mayor Daley, and it was interesting to see because John Lindsay was then the mayor of New York, the glamour boy, remember?
Actually, I sat next to him at the Democratic Convention in 1972 in Miami Beach.
John Lindsay. Yeah.
John Lindsay, Robert Vaughn, 4 McCarthy people, their significant others.
Oh, yeah.
The 8 of us because we're in that one section, yeah.
Well, this was right around that time and before the infamous 72, but it was so interesting to see going out to this mayor's conference, all the mayors, and Lindsay was kind of the glamour boy. Nobody paid any attention to Lindsay. All these mayors from throughout the country wanted to talk to Dick Daley and talk to him about what he did and how he did it. And I think it was a respect for the job that he did and things that we living in Chicago every day didn't truly appreciate. You know, the people throughout the country did. And I think there's some same truth to Rich Daley as well.
I think he not only lives for the job, he wants to succeed and cares in a way that no one else does. And I think it's interesting because I've talked to you before about this. I tend to think that even in his sleep, he probably dreams about ways to make this a better city. And he honestly cares and wants to make this a better place. And by the way, you are on warning. I'm actually, not tomorrow. I can't tomorrow. Well, it'll be before the show gets on the air. I'm seriously making an effort to get him on the air before this election. I really want to get him on the air, and I think that'd be great. I mean, I really respect and admire him a lot. I really do, and I think that we couldn't possibly be in a better situation. And one thing I want to say about the original Mayor Daley, too, because I can't say I appreciate him when I was younger. I didn't. Mm-hmm. Okay, I was a big Mike Royko fan. But you know what? When it was the 30th anniversary of his passing, and they brought up an old Royko column. Yeah. And Royko actually had some decent things to say in that particular column. But one of the things I respect beyond belief was that every night, no matter what, he had dinner with his family. Yeah. And I can't begin to tell you. And you know what? First of all, you might think you're working extra, doing the right thing for your job or making more money by not having dinner with your family, but it puts it back in perspective. It makes life real. Sure. I mean, there's a lot to be respected about that kind of approach. Don't have a lot of time. You like anybody in the alderman's race? Can I ask you?
Well, I try to on the local level, be a little more circumspect because there are 50 aldermen, and if I get into one, I get into a lot of them.
Where we live.
I know, but that covers. I like Bernie's a good man and been around a long time. I don't know too many other people. Nazy Doler I know a little bit, and she strikes me as a very fine person. So we've got a couple of good people, and the others may be as well. But Bernie's been around a long time.
No, I like Bernie, and well, you know what? I'm going to have them all on the air the next couple of weeks, so I'll get a chance to learn, and we'll get to see him in the whole shot. In the meantime, I guess I want to thank you very much because we're really not only out of time, I'm not going to be able to run much of the beginning of the show. So you've gotten good over the years. I mean, I had trouble with 9 minutes with you at one point in time.
Oh, we had no problem.
We could talk 2 hours. It wouldn't be a problem at all. I want to thank you very much. And by the way, also invite you on I was going to put you on on the move on the air to say, come to our CAFS meeting one time this year. But I can't really embarrass you anymore. Sonny Hersh, my entire technical crew, thank you so much. Marty Levinson, thanks so much for the haircut. My guest today, State's Attorney Dick Devine, thank you so much for being here. Take care. Be well. Bye-bye.
Take care.